Greetings, historians, and welcome back to House of Ideas Historian. So comic books has always been about community. A couple weeks ago, I talked to Tim Reynolds over at Comic Carnival. You can watch in this video right here, and had a great time with that. So, going on with that theme, I've got my best friend right here. This is Levi Rennick. We've known each other for about 15 years now, and about 7 of those has been our journey with comic books. So Levi, I know you know a little bit about Marvel Comics.
Just a little bit.
What do you like about Marvel and Marvel comic books?
So, I love comic books. I love the format of storytelling about them. Stan Lee said it great in an interview one time when someone was asking him about why should anyone read a comic book, because you're seeing it happen, you're not reading it happen, and reading it happen is what is like actual literature. And so he responded with, well, then I'm assuming you would never go see a Shakespeare play. Because why would you go see the play when you're supposed to read it? And they're like, but that's different. That's a different form of storytelling. And he's like, that's the point. In comic books, it is different. And so I love the comic book medium of storytelling. I like seeing the action. I love seeing different artists' approach to the same characters and same outfits. Absolutely love it. And Marvel Comics is my ultimate favorite because it's one big story. I love the fact that I can pick up a Captain America comic book and it's the exact same Captain America from 1941, punching Hitler on that iconic cover. Absolutely love just the huge continuity of Marvel Comics, and all the history behind it, of course, but the giant universe is just always changing and evolving, and I love it.
Well, absolutely. I've talked about in the past how much I love early comics and how they really do tie to modern comics in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you have just finished a major accomplishment in your comic book career.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
So, when Drew and I were first getting into comic books, I was into comic books about a month-ish ahead of you, and we would talk about them, and we started going to half-price books, and that was our comic book shop. We would go to Comic Carnival, but we didn't really have a lot of money at the time, and we didn't know what we wanted to read, so we'd go to half-price books, and we'd just, grab a couple issues, or especially the trades off the walls, is what we would get. And so, as we were reading these, kind of testing the water, see what we like, I uncontested liked the X-Men the most. And that started as well because I loved the X-Men movies. They were the characters I was familiar with. Like, a whole generation of readers now get into comic books because of the incredible MCU films. That's how I was with the Fox X-Men films. And so I knew I liked the characters. Reading them in comic books was even better. And so I started my real read-through of the X-Men going into 10th grade. And when I was going into 10th grade, I decided I wanted to go all the way back from that in the 60s, X-Men #1, and read every single X-Men title to date. And just last week, I officially read X-Men #9 from the Dawn of X series with Jonathan Hickman, completing my journey of reading every single X-Men title to date. So I can officially say, if the title has X-Men on it or in it, that I have read it.
That is absolutely amazing. I know that longtime viewers know that I've been reading Avengers for the same time period. I started about 6 months after Levi because I'll read the Thunderbolts because I really like the Thunderbolts. Well, I finished, a run of Thunderbolts in 6 months and wanted to start something else. So I thought, hey, new Avengers from the 2000s area would be great. But even reading that first issue, they started talking about the old Avengers, and I'm missing many years of books. So that's when I started all the way back at the beginning for the Avengers. But it's because Levi here decided that he wanted to read X-Men. So it's safe to say you like the X-Men.
Absolutely. X-Men all the way.
Awesome. Well, we like all Marvel here. Mutants have never been high on my priority list, but I know that if I need a question answered about mutants, I just always come to him. So
right, which is also a great point about comic books in general and the importance of community, which you see on every major team, Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four, that Marvel's such a community-driven thing. It's been really great because I've read X-Men and Drew has read Avengers, that like when AVX happens and they collide or a character interacts with one of the other characters, and if we have a question, we can ask the other person and we get to benefit off of each other's massive libraries of readings without having to read all of them as well. So, we've loved it.
Really fun crossover, kind of like that. Beast is obviously a major important character to the X-Men, to the mutants, one of the original X-Men. But when he went off on his own, he did become an Avenger for a while. Mm-hmm. So Beast's whole main kind of like tagline, "Oh my stars and garters," is, that is Beast.
Right.
You see it all over the place. In every book that borrows Beast, he says it. It's all over the place. But it's fun because the first time he says that is in an Avengers book, not in an X-Men book. So, yay community.
Yeah, and even that itself, Beast is a great example of shared characters, right? Like, I read Beast for this chunk of time and can remember the issue where Beast was like, I'm going to leave the X-Men for a while. And the X-Men were like, we're probably going to have to shut down because Beast is gone.
Clearly.
And then he hops over to the Avengers. And so I'm like, I wonder what Beast has been up to. I can literally be like, hey, I'm in this year of X-Men. When you get there, tell me what Avengers or what Beast is doing in the Avengers for that year. And so you can keep up with the characters that we know and love.
Beast has become one of my favorite characters for a lot of reasons because of things he's done in the Avengers. And then I've wanted to read stuff with the X-Men just because I want to keep up with Beast because, he's great.
Yeah,
so
Beast is in my top 10. Love the guy.
So, moving on just a little bit, obviously you like X-Men.
That is true.
You've read a lot of X-Men. Through the years, what is your favorite story arc when it comes to the X-Men? Now, that can be an event, that can be a writer taking up a mantle. What is your favorite X-Men story arc?
Well, I mean, the easy cop-out answer is just Chris Claremont's run, because it's like most of X-Men, right? But if we're going to be more specific, and I'm going to kind of put Chris Claremont on pause for a moment, we'll get back to him, but I love all of the early 2000s and into the mid-2000s, that 2008s to 10s era of the X-Men on Utopia. That is one of my all-time favorite series, but also, a little bit biased. That was what X-Men was going on, and I was reading that when I decided to hit pause on that to go back to the beginning. So when I finally got back to there, that was very special to me. And huge Cyclops fan, love what they're doing with him in Dawn of X, but I'm like, he could have a more prominent role. They're living on an island now, and he led an island nation, first person to unite, get the X-Men flag, not a big deal. But loved that era. But then I believe it was Bendis, who you've talked about before. You can check it out in what video? Where's that?
It's going to be this one
that
right
video
here.
right there. Yeah, go check out that video on Brian Michael Bendis. But he took a take on the all-new X-Men right after AVX, when Beast, who we love, decided that the X-Men had gone too far off course for what the X-Men were supposed to be. So he went back in time, got the original 5 X-Men, including himself, yoinked them out of time, brought them to current, and then they couldn't go back. And so it was this great, huge saga, really, about what are these time-displaced X-Men doing. And as someone who read all those old comics, loved seeing them in this new light. Literally stole straight from early 60s panels, like when Beast hops in. Absolutely masterfully done. If you haven't read All New X-Men, highly recommend it. There's so many X-Men stories I like. Wolverine and the X-Men is a great one in that same time period. But recently, Dawn of X. It's so good. Jonathan Hickman is a masterful writer.
Oh my goodness.
And like, Dawn of X, House and Power of X10, whatever, is huge. And then even all the Dawn of X stuff that comes, particularly X-Men with Hickman still at the helm. Just masterful stuff. But with Chris Claremont's run, obviously love Dark Phoenix Saga. One of my favorite things of all time, especially like X-Men 3 is a movie that you can choose to watch, but it got me into comic books. So then it was the first time that like I was reading how Dark Phoenix Saga was supposed to happen and seeing the difference of screen to source material because of how much those early X-Men movies really impacted the comic books I was reading. And so to see it backwards was fantastic.
Yeah, 20 years later, sorry about that, 20 years later, those movies still are showing an impact, and it's quite impressive.
Absolutely.
So obviously you like X-Men.
Right.
We've been over that.
A little bit.
When it comes to just mutants, who is your number one guy?
For just mutants, it's going to be Magneto. I absolutely adore Magneto. And especially because, I love that he is unique in all of Marvel's pantheon, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. But one of them being, he is both the greatest foe and ally. There's very little characters who you can really say that about. Doom is similar, but the only reason he allies with you is to genuinely prove that he is better than you.
Because Doom is better.
Because Doom is better.
Pro Doom.
But Magneto, like Dawn of X, is a great example. Utopia is another example. In the late 80s, when he took over Xavier's school with the New Mutants, is another example. When he is your ally, he truly, truly is your ally. Like, there's no question of his loyalties because he's there for mutants. And so love that complexity and that angle of the character. Yeah, so mutants, as far as mutants go, Magneto's number one.
Magneto number one. So now we're going to open up, broad. It's the favorite question for every comic book store and every comic book conversation. Who is your number one favorite Marvel character? So now, whole genre wide. Is it still Magneto or is it...
Yeah, so if it's going to be whole universe, this is my caveat with Magneto. Because he's a hero and villain, he gets the best of both worlds. I put him in a separate category. So while Magneto is still going to be number one of all time, love whenever I'm like, Magneto might be getting replaced because he's not in every X-Men issue, then he's in an issue, I'm like, never mind, he's the best. But I put him kind of in that separate category. If you're looking at just pure heroes, like who's my favorite heroes in all of X-Men and Mutants, it's going to be Cyclops. Huge Cyclops was right. AVX, I stand with him. Utopia, I stand with him. Dawn of X, I mean, if there's a time to stand with Cyclops, I'm raising that X up in the air. I've recently got my Merry Marvel Marching Society shirt off Redbubble. Almost instead got a Cyclops was right shirt. Was so close to doing it, but would rather get the classic. So as far as favorite characters, particularly heroes, go, I really put a tie of Cyclops and Captain America as number 1 and 2, depends on who I'm reading. But I'm a sucker for whoever's leading a team. That's kind of where it's at. For 1 and 2, it's that rotating door of Cyclops and Captain America with a very strong number 3 pick of Daredevil.
Okay, absolutely, because you just started a Daredevil run as well, correct?
Yeah, since I'm done with X-Men, I officially started Daredevil. I just finished Frank Miller's just masterful run on Daredevil, his first run, and I'm in that early 200s range, and I'm loving every minute.
Awesome. We love old comic books, and it is awesome to kind of go back to the beginning. It may not be feasible for everybody. It does take some time, and you really have to have a love for the old comic books.
Yep.
But I love starting at the beginning. So when I'm done, like I've told you, I've mentioned in the channel, I'm going to be reading ASM from the very beginning. I'm very excited because honestly, when it comes to Marvel, Spider-Man's been a big question mark for me because he's a huge part of Marvel that I only know when he pops in with an Avengers every once in a while. So, or when I read Venom books because I've been all about Venom forever.
That's true.
So, obviously, your number 1, number 2, and number 3, all of those are old characters.
Right.
We're talking 60s and 40s for everyone you just mentioned that is in your top. In the last decade, Marvel has done some massive expansions.
Absolutely.
They have given us some amazing new characters and a lot of new themes. So if we're restricting the character pool to only this past decade, so 2010 to 2020, do you have a new character that is new to this decade that you like the most?
Absolutely. Uncontested number 1 new favorite character is going to be from the all-new Wolverine series. People were so excited when that all-new was kicking off because you had Jane Foster Thor and Sam Wilson Cap and Laura Kinney's Wolverine. But in Laura Kinney's Wolverine, one of my all-time favorite things happens in issue number 2. And it's actually a big key issue I'm looking for. Looks like this, where we get introduced to Gabby. Have you met Gabby before?
I've never read or heard about Gabby, so let me know.
She's an incredible character that sadly gets overshadowed because of all the incredible characters that were coming out at the time. And so Gabby is a clone of Laura. Laura is a clone of Wolverine. This is her clone, but there were a lot of them and they kept getting killed off throughout the run, but Gabby is the only one who lived. Gabby is particularly special because she cannot feel pain. That was the next step of making the perfect assassin. So she's doesn't not only does she heal from it, she doesn't feel it. She also has one single claw that comes up. She makes a lot of jokes about it. It's great. But she's like a 9-10-year-old girl. And so Laura meets her and is trying to get her not to be a killer.
Not to turn into what she was.
Right, and so, but she still uses her powers, and she's tons of fun, gets a whole new take on the Wolverine-Laura dimension. Wolverine kind of considers this his granddaughter. Laura considers this her daughter. They live together, and so during the all-new Wolverine run, like, it was really all about Gabby. And Wolverine, X-23, Wolverine at the time, mentoring Gabby and trying to teach her a better way of life. And absolutely love it. She literally takes a live Wolverine and dresses it in a Wolverine suit named Jonathan, and it is her pet, and they wrestle, and I love it. But during House and Power of X, we didn't see what happened to Gabby. And I was freaking out. And so I was reading every single issue, and I'm like, where is Gabby? Is she safe? Is she all right? Like, freaking out. And they just showed, like, a picture of Gabby just, like, playing on a beach somewhere. I'm like, okay, good. She's on the island. We're good. She's safe now. She's safe. Protect her. So I love Gabby. Gabby, she also took the name Honey Badger as her name, which I love. She then recently changed it to Scout. I love Honey Badger. I really hope she goes back to that. Scout is still great. But Gabby would be my favorite in the most recent years.
So it's a little sad hearing that we don't see much more of Gabby, and it really reminds me of a lot of times when I'm reading a run or reading, a series and absolutely loving it, and then it comes to an end and someone else picks up the writing, and then the continuity just kind of changes. And it's like, what about X? I was reading the Venom run by Rick Remender, and then it moved over. They introduced a new character, Mania, and she was such a huge character, and then everything switched over with Marvel now, and all of a sudden Venom is with the Thunderbolts, and we don't see anything of Mania. Well, finally, back in 2018, 2018, they started giving her character some presence again. It's like, oh, thank you. You were here the whole time. I just didn't see you because I missed you.
Yeah, no, it's true. You hate when that happens to characters.
So, moving on from the world within the world to kind of the real world a little bit.
Yeah.
I know recently you've been buying a lot of single issues.
That is true.
And a lot of keys. Tell me what you like to look for when it keys. Do you have a list? Do you set aside thousands of dollars for that X-Men #1? What?
Yeah, so obviously when you get into comic books, one of the natural defaults will be that you want key issues in your collection and building up a key issue collection. It's just something that happens, and you're just going to have to deal with that. But when I look for key issues, I look for things that are monumental to characters that I like or teams. So obviously, probably a solid 90% of my key issue collection is X-Men issues. I've recently started picking up the Daredevil issues as well, and then have a couple here and there for other characters, which is great. Things that I look for is monumental for the characters that I really like. So just because it's a big deal to the universe, it's not something that I'm going to really pursue unless I get a blowout deal at like a garage sale that I wasn't expecting, and so we'll pick it up. But for the most part, it's tracking down issues that I like. I have a list of issues on my phone. I recently decided that I want to own the Frank Miller run of Daredevil and a big chunk of the Chris Claremont run of X-Men, because even the key issues of that run, they're all key issues. They're Claremont's X-Men run. And so I have a list on my phone of just all the numbers that I don't have, and next to it is like anything big that happens. If like this character appears, like we were at a store yesterday. And found first appearance of Cypher. I want to say that's 184. I could be completely wrong with that. Don't fact check me, please. Or this one, whichever one this picture is. And so it's a whole $4 issue. It's not a key. Yeah, sure, Cypher. He's a New Mutant. I really like him. Yeah, sure. For $4, we're going to pick it up. And just to complete that 1 to 200 of Claremont's run of X-Men is what I'm shooting for right now.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So along those lines, you have to have your #1, the most, whether it's expensive, whether it's important. What is your absolute favorite key that you currently own right now?
So I've been talking a lot about X-Men, but it's not an X-Men key. My all-time favorite key at the moment that I have, I am currently trying to save up for a big X-Men key. I'm really hoping to get First Phoenix, or especially a Giant Size X-Men #1. That's like putting money aside each month, hoping one day if we ever have Comic Cons again to try to find one that would replace it. But right now, for my birthday, I bought a Daredevil #7. And was one that I saw a couple weeks before for a great price. Was like, I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on it. but decided to pick it up. For those of you who don't know, Daredevil number 7 is the first time Daredevil dons the iconic red outfit as opposed to the weird red, burgundy, and bright yellow.
I'm still hoping it comes back.
I am too. I like the yellow suit. But the Daredevil suit really is born in issue 7. But more than that, it's actually one of my all-time favorite issues, period, for the story. You also get a great advertisement for the MMMS on the cover, which is great. But it's one of my favorite single issues of all time because it sets up who Daredevil is as a person.
Absolutely.
And in it, the Submariner Namor is going on a rampage, and no one is there to stop him. And Daredevil has like a crisis. He's like, I know if I fight this guy, I have no special powers to help me. And this dude's fought Fantastic Four and the Hulk and the Avengers, and he walks away from every single one of them. This is way out of my league. I can't handle this. And he keeps doing it, and he's like, I have to go do this anyway. And he shows up and just gets his butt whooped 6 ways to Sunday. Like, every issue is just him getting wrecked, but then standing back up and just getting wrecked. Until literally the final issue, or the final panel is, he cannot stand up anymore. Literally just laying there, billy clubs on the ground, can't stand up, and Namor says, I declare you truly to be a man without fear. And out of respect, goes back to the ocean.
Wow.
And that sets up Daredevil's character and who he is, and that's, such an analogy of life. No matter how many times you get knocked down, it's a fight you can't win. You have to get up and keep trying no matter what. So
Wonderful.
That's why it's my favorite issue.
That's awesome. It looks great. From the pictures I've seen.
I did send pictures.
From the pictures I've seen, in fact, here.
Oh, yeah, there's my issue.
There it goes.
Yeah, look at that.
So, it looks great, and for such a important key for the character and just the age of the book itself.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, that is awesome. We're running just a little bit on time, but I'm going to open it up to you. Levi, do you have any questions for me, for the audience, for the channel itself? This is your time. Go.
Yeah, I really hope to see you take on some X-Men videos. You did one on the unboxing video for 20th anniversary of the X-Men movie, which is crazy thing that came out. But would love to see you take some X-Men stuff on.
It's going to take some research, because I haven't read a whole lot of X-Men, but I do actually have something that I'm going to be working on. I also am going to be unboxing this box, hopefully in, pretty shortly. So that's going to be fun, but, I am looking at it. There is one X-Men run I have read, so
we take those.
Maybe we'll be talking about them, but, this is a channel about Marvel, and mutants are part of Marvel. I just need to brush up when it comes to the mutants, because it's just not in my wheelhouse. Of all these books, not very many of them are X-Men. They're all the way back here.
Also, Avengers vs. X-Men doesn't count. It's like, oh, look, I have X-Men books. That has Avengers first. Don't count that.
All right. Well, we're just going to end it there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Levi. This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me or for Levi, hit me up in the comments below. If it's a question for him, I'll just ask him, and then I'll answer. Perfect. So, I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. For now, if you guys could just do me one favor, like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe for all future content. Thank you there very much, and you know how I sign off, so...
Enough said.
Excelsior, true believers. Till next time.